Hi, my name is Jen Huang, and I work in ads at Google, and I'm here to introduce Anthony from Anthony's Cookies. And so I'm really excited that you guys are all here today. So just to give a really short introduction, Anthony was attending San Francisco State University, working towards an accounting degree, when his friends jokingly suggested he actually bake cookies to make ends meet. And so he started baking cookies out of his small student apartment, which kickstarted his 10-year career in baking. And despite having no formal culinary training, he opened his own bakery and is now the #1 producer in gourmet cookies in the Bay Area. And his cookies and cream cookie has also been featured as one of the best eats of San Francisco in both 2010 and 2011. Okay, so give a warm round of applause for Anthony.
First, I want to say, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna hope you all don't mind me just being myself. You know, if I stutter or trip on a chord or something like that, let me do it. And I gotta say, I gotta first thank Twitter, and you're gonna understand why. That was the first time I ever did something like this, and if there was a bucket to catch all the sweat, it would have been very full, you know. So that was, I kind of like broke the ice and like, okay, I get this. It's not that bad speaking in front of many people, but I did that about a month ago. But I also want to say thank you all for taking it, because I know you all work at Google, and I'm sure it's extremely busy. It's an assumption, but I'm almost guaranteed for you to take a time out of your schedule and come see me or hear what I have to say. So, all right. The first thing, I just want to let you know, a little bit about Anthony's Cookies. Jen pretty much told you, how it all started, and I'm just going to kind of go into detail if you don't mind. So, first of all, I never in my life was good at baking. I know my mother, she was good at baking, but the most I ever came to baking was licking the spoon after she got done whipping, whatever she made. Never was good at baking, wasn't inclined to baking. And I'm gonna make a statement, you're gonna see how this is connecting later, but I was always I love mathematics. I love mathematics. So I was inclined to doing things towards accounting, even possibly engineering, architecture, things of that nature. So that's how I ended up at State. You're probably thinking, wait, accounting, math, how in the world is he doing cookies and good at it? But so I ended up at State, and somebody suggested I made some cookies. It wasn't anything to be taken serious, but I'm the type of person where if it makes a little bit of sense sometimes, I just go ahead and run for it and do it. So I ran and I did it, and I made some cookies. And again, I wasn't planning on doing this for the rest of my life, or even turning it into a business that it is now. That was the farthest thing from mine. It was something on the side, just make a few dollars here and there, and I did it. So a few dollars started adding up. Nothing huge, nothing big, but I started doing it, and I just took an interest, just got good at making cookies. So as time went on, I learned that I'm a little business savvy, natural business savvy, and I took my ability to make cookies, and I started marrying the two, using my natural business sense. And it's funny, like now people tell me, Anthony, you're doing great marketing, you're doing this, and you're doing, I'm like, I am? And so now later on, I'm like, oh, I am. You know, just doing things that naturally came to me. You know, so for example, like one of the things that I would do was, because as I'm making the cookies, I wanted people to know, okay, look, I'm the one making the cookies. You know, and if you want the cookies, I want to make sure you can contact me, and you can distinguish me from anybody else. You know, so it's the little things like come up with a name, and I put a name on attach a name to the business. Just the most simplest thing, at least that I thought, you know, and those are things that I did, you know, from the beginning. Okay, and so years later, you know, as like I said, and I have to say this, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this. What has driven me and what still continues to drive me is I don't like to disappoint people. You know, I hate disappointing people, you know, and I don't like to offer something that is not 100% or if not more. So if it was cookies, and like I said, forgive me if it kind of bounces around a little bit, but it was cookies in this sense. So I wanted to make sure when you got the cookie, you were blown away, you were satisfied. You know, so having that as, you know, the backdrop of the reason behind what I did, that's how things always came out better and really good, you know, and that was from the service that I gave, and that was also, of course, directly to the cookies that I made, you know, and so all of that, you know, years later, I ended up saying, wait, I gotta have my own place. You know, I can't continue doing this the way that I was doing. You know, so I went ahead and started putting things together and trying to figure out how can I get my own place to bake from, where I can control everything and get more creative and offer a better service and keep the quality up. So I went ahead and did that, and so my brain's working. So I started reading books, and if I jump a little bit, forgive me, but that's why some of the people that I really admire are like Steve Jobs, or I'm gonna like even Jay-Z, you know, like, Jay, you're baking cookies, you know, this is completely different. But really, business and success, and when you have goals, it's very, very similar. There's so many similarities, you know. So, and the reason why I mention them is many of them had humble beginnings. You know, they just pretty much had a dream, or they figured out they were good at something, and sometimes when you figure out you're good at something, you just start seeing what you're capable of, or you begin to see what you're capable of and where it can possibly go. And there can be walls and different things in front of you, but you just don't see it. You see it as something that you can overcome. So I had nothing at the time of my idea of getting my own shop. And I started reading books. Okay, how can I raise the money? How can I do this and how can I do that? So I started that. I started, you know, asking different people. I even went as far as being told, yes, I can do this, and people back out on me, and I was just I was always motivated. You know, nothing discouraged me. You know, so eventually things happened, and it was still rough. It was still very rough. I ended up finally finding a place. Somebody told me to come look at this one. And I'm like, okay. And I went and looked, and it was a place on Valencia. That's where I shop, the first one. So I went there and I said, okay. And there was a friend of mine that was looking at the time. He said, you should go for this one. You should go for this one. I said, okay. I trust you. I trust you. So I went for it. It was probably the where we were, nothing there, literally. It was just like the dead end of that street. So went ahead, did it, and we started building it. We opened up, and I was a new kid on the block. I didn't have a big name. I didn't have any, big chef that I can mention trained me or went to this culinary school. It was nothing, except heart, passion, and I was good at what I did, and I'm confident. Not arrogant confident, but confident. Not arrogant confident. So I did it, and we opened up. I'm telling you, and I'm actually glad. If you ever start something or do something, I am asking you, take pictures, write notes, because you actually need to see. So a year later, you'll look back and like, wow, we've come far. But if you don't take pictures and do different things like that, you really can't really see. You can't really see how far you've gone, how far you've grown. So somebody came in and took a video of us, and the place was bare. We were unorganized. We didn't know what we were doing. All we had was the cookies, and they were good, just passion. So years later, we just kept building. Whatever came in, we kept reinvesting. And just kept making, whether it's identifying a piece of equipment or different things that's gonna make the product more consistent, make a better product, make it easier on the staff. We always reinvest in whatever can make things more pleasant for the customers coming in. We did that. So that's how we grew in that capacity. This is after we finally got the place. And I gotta say, I think one of the main things about being successful, you have Google, huge. You have so many different huge places out there. And I think just the main thing that successful businesses focus on, even down to something as small as us, is never losing sight of your customers. Never ever losing sight of your customers. So it's funny, somebody mentioned, everybody that goes in there, they're so nice, the employees are so nice. We're very strict on the hiring process, because if somebody comes into your shop, you don't want to disappoint them. You don't want to, not just with the product, you want to make sure they're pleased with how they're treated. So, and again, like the product itself, it has to be 100%, because you just don't want to disappoint anybody, because why would anybody want to come back to you? So those are some of the things that were at the beginning of Anthony's Cookies. And so now we're, right now, it's up running, doing very well, constantly looking into growing, and hopefully that gave you a good foundation of where Anthony's Cookies came from. And I want to, of course, share more things with you, but I really want to open the floor. Any questions that you have for Anthony, the owner of Anthony's Cookies, please ask it.
Please hold the microphone. Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I've been to your place on Valencia many times, and actually Jen was the one who introduced me to it, to your place. My question is, where do you get your recipes, and how do you come up with it? And you're talking about making the product better. How do you, what's the process there of how you make the product better?
Okay, where I get the recipe, the first place I got the recipe was, I can't even remember, I just read it off the back of a box or something one time. And because I was not serious about this. When I first started, I didn't develop a business plan or anything like that, because it wasn't to me taken serious, but as I started, you know, this is gonna answer your question, then I started paying attention to it. You know, so I took one basic recipe and I just changed it as I understood how the baking process went, you know, which is very mathematical. That's why I said earlier, you'll see how it ties in. It's a science. It's a science. It's not like cooking. You know, you get to taste and change this, change that. But with baking, it's a science. It's very mathematical. So the way I came up with the recipes, I figured out one base recipe, and then from there, I would just change it. You know, I would just change until I was completely satisfied. I knew my end result. And I would just change until I was until I got the result that I desired. You know, and I would just listen to people's criticisms. I would listen to people's, you know, if they say this is really good, I would stick with it. If it's something that, you know, that they complained about, then I would change it until they were completely satisfied. You know, so and then as time went on, I would just do different things and change it. Does that make sense? Yeah. And one thing I gotta say is, when you're pretty much anything, but when you're making something, every step you have to pay strict attention to. And that's the same thing with baking. If you're making cakes, if you're making cookies, every single step you can't take for granted. You have to pay strict attention to it and make sure it's done thoroughly. Does that answer your question? All right. Please, any other questions?
Okay, so I have two questions for you.
Yeah.
One is, what is your favorite cookie? And then the second one is, do you have any plans to expand your business in terms of maybe doing a cookbook or doing other types of sweets, like cupcakes or cakes?
Yes. There are definitely plans of expansion. Right now, we don't plan on getting into different types of food. We want to make sure, do one thing and do it well. And there are definitely plans for expansion. And as far as the cookbook, yes, that's later though. Yes, that's later. We're going to get very creative.
Yeah, hi. One thing I've always really respected about entrepreneurs is that you got to pretty much navigate the highs and lows all by yourself, right? So I was wondering if, sounds like you're doing, I'm catching you on a high because you seem really exuberant today, but I was wondering if you could talk about some of the low points that you hit in your business and how you went about handling that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Definitely, the first thing I would say is attitude. I try to make sure I have a positive attitude and very optimistic. You know, so, and when we do reach a low or a challenge or difficulty, I try to embrace it. You know, at first, I would get a little, you know, frazzled, you know, you're a little, you know, nervous. But now, it's more usually, if something goes wrong or if something happens, you know, you embrace it and learn from it and just improve from it. It may sound simple, but that's really what you have to do. You know, so I would say some of the, really hasn't been major low points. I would say some of the biggest challenges that we've faced are, I would say one of the things that it was new to me is managing like plumbers and different professionals, you know, whether it's general contractors or, you know, different professionals like that. It's a task managing everybody, you know. So I learned a lot from that, and the way I learned was I just paid attention to what I did. I tried to make sure I didn't make the same mistake twice. And one of the things that I love, I've always done, and I continue to do, if I see somebody strong where I'm weak, I'm very quick to ask them questions. You know, whether it's a successful business person, whether it's a book, or you know, somebody that's a successful business person that's around me, I pick their brain. You know, I develop a relationship with the right people, pick their brain, and generally they give you some very good pointers on how to deal with your lows. You know, and ultimately I try to make sure I stay on top of things every single day so that you can prevent as many lows as possible. And you know, and just when a low comes up, you assess it and use your resources all the resources that you have, and then overcome it.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Maybe you answered kind of the first one. So what was the hardest part of starting a food-related business in San Francisco? Because there's a lot of competition. Was it finding an affordable place to rent? Was it finding talent? Was it raising money? Was it advertising? And then I'm going to ask the second question later.
Yeah. So, I want to repeat that. So, what was the hardest part of starting a business with food in San Francisco? One of my benefits was I kind of didn't know what I was walking into. And, you know, I guess I was a little naive. So I didn't realize till later, wow, I'm in pretty much the mecca of food, you know, in San Francisco. You know, so it was pretty much what I did. I just did it. Sometimes you have to, whether it's a food industry, if it's technology, there's so many different, there's so much competition out there. Sometimes you just have to go for it, you know, and just do what you absolutely know is your best. You know, do what you absolutely know is your best, and then under no circumstance compromise. You know, so, you know, in the food industry, I just didn't compromise anything. And, you know, the challenges, you know, with the food industry is pretty much dealing with San Francisco, the health department, and building permits. But again, you know, it goes back to embracing challenges. I'm so glad they were hard on us, because now, if you can open up in San Francisco, if you can open up a food establishment in San Francisco and be successful, you can pretty much be successful anywhere, because it's so strict. It's very strict. You know, so San Francisco, they're very strict when it comes to health. You know, making sure you're following the guidelines. You know, making sure you're following the guidelines of sanitation. You know, the building permits. And you would, when you think about it, it's like, oh man, it's a headache going through all this. But then again, you're looking at, well, if this wasn't done right, this can cause a major disaster. So you're actually kind of glad they're on you like that, very strict. And you can learn from it to the point where now I could probably be a general contractor for eating food. I'm glad I went through all of that, you know. So if you ask me about food, people come to me regularly, now, what do you do this and how you do that? And I'm like, I can answer those questions, you know. So does that answer your question?
Kind of, yeah.
Well, I want to make sure it's fully. So if I didn't,
I was just wondering if any one of those things stands out as, was it really hard to find a place, for instance, that was affordable?
it was hard.
Okay.
That's hard, because I'll say it like this. It's easy to do anything, but if you have standards, that's where the difficulty comes in. You know, if you want, I can go pick a place right now. I might be in the middle of nowhere, you know, so you can do anything you want, but if you have standards, I think the higher your standard is, that's what really dictates your level of difficulty. So if I if I want a place that is in a certain location, well then money's a factor. You have to factor that in. You have to factor in, of course, it's going to be more expensive when you open up. If you want to open up, then you have to also take in consideration will your concept work here. Just because it works here doesn't necessarily mean it'll work there. So you have to take all of those things into consideration when you make a move as far as finding the right location.
Yes, my second question was,
Yeah.
What's your experience advertising on Google?
What's my... I see where he's going.
Jen invited me.
When you said the highs and lows and the challenges, I wasn't expecting that. But we gotta look into that. But just as far as advertisement, to be honest, we haven't done any advertisement. And that's one thing that people like, you have done no advertisement? It goes back to, I guess, a natural business sense. I make sure every single thing that goes out has our logo on it. We emphasize word of mouth. And sometimes people and I'm not trying to interfere with nobody's marketing or advertising, so Google, forgive me. But we just strongly treat everything organic, and it's not naive. If you make a great, I'm going to say this. I like Jay-Z. I like Jay-Z. You'll see why I'm saying this. I love Jay-Z music. Everybody I talk to, Jay-Z sometimes comes, look what I'm doing now. Because I like Jay-Z, I like his music. I just mentioned Steve Jobs. I can mention several people. If you like something, people are going to talk about it. People have fallen in love with our cookies. They've fallen in love with our cookies. People have fallen in love with our service. And I mean it. I'm not trying to be, people, they like me, so when they like you, they like your product, they naturally talk about it. Right now, he had a cool little smile when I said something. It was something there. If I got to know him, I might talk about him. I'll talk about you. Sorry to put you on the spot like that. But you talk about it. So if you have that going for you, which is, I believe, the best thing, now what you do is make sure everything that goes out, people are able to attach that product with who produced it. And so when you eat this cookie and you open the box and it says Anthony's Cookies, so, okay, we gotta talk about that for Google.
All right, I'm gonna be the last question.
Yeah.
Because I know everybody wants cookies. I've known Anthony for almost 20 years, and you guys have seen the calm side, so I did have a question for you. Let's see some passion.
Yeah.
What has been the best moment in doing Anthony's Cookies? Like, what has made this journey worth it all?
What has made this journey worth it all? You gotta come with that one, huh? What has made? Because it's endless.
This is the most passionate person. This is the mellow side. You see this little animation, but this is the most passionate person I've ever come across. So I want to see that passion come out right now and pick that thing that you're like, wow, I never thought I would be here doing this, or I never thought I would have this.
You just answered it. You just answered it.
Maybe this is it. Maybe you're here.
There's so many. I'll make this last thing. It's so many. And I think because of my attitude, everything is just great. Because I'm like, whoa, I'm sitting there at Google. I'm standing at Google. It's an honor. it's an absolute honor that you all would take a time out. That drives me. That drives me to do even more. You know, just the passionate, just seeing where I never in my life thought I'd be doing what I'm doing and making these accomplishments and continue to make this continued success. You know, so seeing where I started and seeing where I am now, that's an ongoing great feeling. You know, said passionate. Just working, meeting so many different people, you know, and just not falling under challenges when they come. Not falling under challenges when they come, and when you're actually able to excel, I could talk for days about that. I can talk for days about that. You know, making people smile, or when people are pleased with you, or they love what you're doing, and it's just a great feeling. It's just a great feeling. So, and that's pretty much. So hopefully, if it was a little rough at the beginning, forgive me. I'm still now. It's funny. After 10 minutes later, you start. I wish that would come 5 minutes into it. We'll be all right though. But once again, thank you so much for taking time out. Hopefully, you enjoyed the presentation and were able to take something from it, and I know you'll enjoy these cookies. All right, thank you.